sort of the latest obsession is over Kyle Schwarber. And, hey, there's your DH, Kyle Schwarber. Go get him. Kills right-handed pitching, winning player, great clubhouse guy, all that. So, hey, man, I love Schwarber. Last year at this time, I was one of the people on our station. You were doing it. I think Hadley was doing it, who thought, Schwarber was an excellent fit for the Cardinals, and actually he signed a deal with Washington, I guess it was, for 1 year. It wasn't like it was a huge investment once the Cubs relinquished their rights to him. I think it was Washington. I don't know why I'm blanking on that.
No, it was.
And they later traded him to the Red Sox, and he did a heck of a job for the Red Sox. But anyway, it isn't that I'm against Kyle Schwarber. No, not at all. Not at all. But I just wonder, well, first of all, Schwarber, I could definitely be wrong about this. I don't think you're going to get Schwarber on a 1-year deal, and I know he was looking for 3. And I think there's some teams that are interested in him, and they saw what he did, especially for the Red Sox, and they're pretty excited by it, and the Red Sox included. So I think it's naive, and again, I want to say I could be wrong, but I think it's naive that this idea that you could get him for 1 year and $15 million or $12 million or something like that. I don't think that's going to happen. And then if you get into a multi-year deal, people, you don't want to hear it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you actually love the guys that you've been developing and you want to find plenty, and I mean plenty of at-bats for them, like what is the point of drafting and developing players or signing them internationally and putting so much work and time and money into getting them ready for the big leagues? And you're sitting there and everything they've done in the minor leagues, Gorman included, Jordan Walker, there's some others we can name, like Alec Burleson, for example. Lars Nootbaar is another example. So the whole point is when you draft and develop these guys, you really hope that your confidence in them pans out and that they're going to be as good as you hope they would be when you drafted them. Well, once they get to the point where not only are they as good as you would hope they would be, they might even be better than you hope they would be. And I don't think it's hype to suggest that's the case with Gorman, and it will be the case with Walker. And I can just leave it at that for now. You got Juan Yepez, who they already put on the 40-man roster, a guy they got in that Matt Adams trade at the time. He was a kid. He's still a kid, really, and just tore it up at AAA last year. And I didn't ask Keith Law about him, and that was a whiff on my part. So you're doing this for a reason. You're doing this to have these guys on your big club, and not only just have them there, but playing a major role, and you're really happy about that. That's a positive thing. So where are all these guys going to play, even with the DH? When I say play, I ain't talking about the Mike Matheny thing where you have a young player who's really talented and he winds up playing once or twice a week. I'm not talking about the Mike Shildt thing where they bring up Randy Arozarena at a time where their outfield offensively, frankly, was awful. And Shildt does not play Randy Arozarena. He does not play him. And that's one of the reasons why they traded him, because they thought, well, manager doesn't like him. And, we got a lot of outfielders and we really love this pitching prospect. So let's make the trade. I still think somewhere in the mind of the owner and the president of baseball operations, the way Shildt mishandled the Arozarena thing, I think that was in their minds back there when they had to decide what to do. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they didn't want Matheny too. They didn't want Matheny too.
Yeah.
So anyway, Kyle Schwarber, I love him. If you were playing more than 8 position players in a DH, and you could give all these guys 500 at bats, yeah, create a 10th spot. Just get Manfred and the Players Association to create an extra spot. But I just wonder if the people that want Kyle Schwarber to be the answer to their dreams and maybe would be willing to give him a 3-year contract or whatever. So what are you going to do with the other people? I mean, what? And I know this, I know exactly where, it's going in a way. Well, Bernie, I mean, you trade DeYoung, see, everything will start with some sort of trading, firing, kidnapping, some
sending him to Japan, wherever.
Yes, it all starts with Paul DeYoung, whether it's relevant or not. I get it, but where are you going to put all these kids? Where are you going to put Gorman next year? I mean, you could move Tommy Edman to shortstop and put Gorman at second base. I get it, and then you could have Schwarber as the DH. I get it. That's 1 year though. And let me tell you something, and this is where there's a disconnect. Even when I'd say this, because people get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. This isn't my decision. I'm just telling you how it is. They ain't going to trade Paul DeYoung. They're not going to bench him either. When these teams sign players to contracts, they're going to play him, and they believe DeYoung will bounce back. Now, you can hate me for, sitting here and then, for example, refusing to call John Mozeliak, really bad names and all this. I'm not going to do that. This is how they're going to do it. They're stubborn about it. They're going to do it. I don't rule out DeYoung having a respectable year next year either, because in the final 3 months of last season, and park adjusted runs created, which is really the measure baseball front offices look at when they're trying to, see where a player really does perform, because it balances out home and away hitting and all this other stuff. He was 3% below average the final 3 months. I mean, that's basically being at average. So it's not a lost cause. I don't know what to think. I think that the arrow's still pointing down, but I've got an open mind about him doing better next year. And I know, unlike many of you, I also pay attention to defense, which, kind of put, I don't know, maybe played a giant role in the Cardinals, making it to the playoffs last year. Defense matters. And, DeYoung always gives you that. And I don't know that Sosa's going to be, I don't know whether I'm like the president of the Sosa fan club, but even I don't know if what he did for the Cardinals last year can be repeated, whether it was sort of an outlier, not going to happen again type thing. But my point is, if you want to play Nolan Gorman once he comes up pretty early next year, next season, you can fiddle around with second base and all that. But I'm telling you what, if you're playing a bunch of right-handed pitching, which they will, they're playing against a bunch of right-handed pitching. You've put so much into this guy about believing that he's going to be, a true star, and he's ready to be in the big leagues. I don't care if he breaks in as a DH. It only makes your team stronger, because then you can move more pieces around, and you don't have to get all tied up with sacrificing some defense by playing him at second. You can move Tommy Edman to shortstop, but really, how much better will you be offensively there? It's not like there's this huge gulf between, Edman and DeYoung. Seriously, Edman has been better, but he's still been, in effect, below average, and he can't hit right-handed pitching. So I'm just not – I don't think you can have it both ways. I mean, for years and years and years, there's a lot of criticism. Cardinals don't draft. They don't develop sluggers. They don't have any sluggers. They always got to go try to find sluggers. They got to go overpay for sluggers who aren't really sluggers, Marcell Ozuna. They got to go and make out these trades for offense, because they don't have offense in the system. They don't have enough bats. They don't have power. Why can't they get power? Why can't they get hitters? Where are the sluggers? Blah, 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 blah. Well, you better go trade for Marcell Ozuna. Oh, why did you trade for Ozuna? It's just, if you got a slugger ready, he's ready. Let's go. What are you worrying about Kyle Schwarber for? That's kind of where I am on this. I don't get it. The Cardinals have almost like a surplus of position players. And they've got the means to rotate that DH position around, and in a way that could actually make for very meaningful number of at-bats for Gorman and Nootbaar, who, by the way, tore up the fall league. And I was talking to a scout about him. Throughout baseball, people are saying, this kid's going to be damn good. They've really got enough people that with good bats that they can put into the DH role, and they can rotate it, because then it can become kind of an unofficial platoon. Because Schwarber can't hit left-handers. Gorman can't hit left-handers. But then you have people that can hit left-handers. You have Juan Yepez, and you have, I tell you who hits left-handers pretty good. He started to, is Lars Nootbaar. So when you've got the answers and the solutions in-house, and this is the whole damn point of having a farm system, why are we, why are we obsessing about Kyle Schwarber? I mean, I get it, but I don't get it, if that makes sense.
You know what? I'm there with you. All the pieces that you just described, I think, at least I hope, will help make this ball club, and they will also help with making that bench stronger, right? Because the bench was weak last year. There's just no doubt about that. They all have different strengths. Yepez looks like he's just going to be flat out a hitter. Nootbaar looks like he can do a lot of different things. I was impressed with his defense last year. Remember, he made a couple of really nice plays out in the outfield that helped out. Then Gorman, just every time I hear the name Gorman, Bernie, in my mind, I'm thinking professional hitter. And I'm not saying DH. I just mean he's a professional hitter. He's going to be able to work counts and just do some things and be a guy that you go, this guy works counts and is just going to be what we team a professional hitter, something that we see with Carlson developing into. And those are all great pieces to have. I don't necessarily think, in terms of the DH, when it comes to St. Louis this year, it's, the days of having, I don't know, Reggie Jackson's going to be the DH. Those guys that's not the way the Cardinals are going to go about this.
No.
It's going to be, it's going to be matchups. It's going to be a guy swinging the bat well. It's righty, lefty, that kind of thing, because they got a lot of moving parts. And Schwarber puts up numbers, and I know he was valuable at the deadline. He was good for the Red Sox last year. But if you got all these other guys that can hit and hit well, I know Cardinal fans aren't going to like me saying this, but if they can do in combination what you can get out of Schwarber, there's no need to go get Schwarber.
Or even if they come close or whatever. See, now, what people don't understand before they get too mad at me, if the Cardinals were in a different situation, then I'd be pounding my desk and, hollering about Schwarber or somebody else over and over and over and over again. But that was before Tyler O'Neill was maybe one of the breakout stars in the major leagues last season. He was one of the best outfielders all around, and I'm talking top 5, like corner outfielders in baseball, and the best is yet to come. And we all love Dylan Carlson. In the second half, he really started to get grooved, and he looked like a veteran. And you're like, okay, he figured it out, and he got past that little lull time that all rookies go through. And then this guy Nootbaar comes up, and I had the guy with the funny name and all this, and even when they brought him up, it was that Detroit series, and he did some good things, but he just looked good. He looked like a ball player. To your point, you could tell that he's going to go catch the ball. You can tell that he's going to be on it. He's going to make the right throw. He's got a good arm. Can he hit? Well, he started hitting like hell for the Cardinals, the year before that in the system, and then when they sent him back down and he stayed for a while, he came up, late in the season, and his final 2 months he was fantastic and well above average, and the metrics were really strong, and he showed an ability to hit left-handed pitching as well. And my view of Nootbaar changed. My view is like, okay, man, that's a pretty good dude to develop. He can help you for a while. Now I'm looking at him as like, you not only have a terrific fourth outfielder for what you need, and now if a Bader would go down like he did last year, it's not going to be Justin Williams out there. You can turn to Lars Nootbaar. And Lars is a good player. He's a really good player. And the scouts love him, scouts for other teams. So, a year ago, I think Dylan Carlson projected to be a regular. A year ago, we weren't sure about, O'Neill. We even though Bader was good in 2020, weren't sure whether to believe that the progress he showed would last. And actually, last season he struck out 22% of the time, which was like a big drop from where he was. He started hitting right-handers, and he was well above average. And it's funny because I go to some of these comment sections or whatever, and everybody wants to trade him. I don't get it. I just don't get it. So anyway, Bader was even a question to a degree a year ago. And this was before they got Arenado, right? And this was before, we thought maybe Goldie was going to be on the downside. And, Gorman wasn't ready. We didn't know who Jordan Walker really was. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on, Edmundo Sosa was an afterthought. So last year at this time, you look at around the horizon of St. Louis Cardinals baseball, and you're like, man, there's a couple big holes there, and a guy like a Schwarber would really fit well. But in a year later, I think some things have really changed. I mean, the final 3 months of the season, the Cardinals had. This is not an opinion; it's a fact. Once they got their outfield in place, and I've been over this a million times. Once they got those guys lined up, which was the plan all along, when Bader returned from the broken rib, it was July 1st, literally July 1st, and from that point on, the Cardinals had an offense top 10 in baseball in a lot of categories because that offense took off, and that offense was one of the best in baseball in terms of outfields. And that was the team they wanted to have on the field. And once they got it on the field with some help from Sosa and with Goldie going completely bananas over the final 3 months, putting up massive numbers, the Cardinals actually were one of the better offenses in baseball. Now, people don't want to believe that because they remember the first 3 months when they didn't have the team that they wanted on the field because guys were hurt. But once they got them all together, and then you add Nootbaar to the mix, and Sosa's doing his thing to compensate for DeYoung, and Goldie's having an MVP-type second half, well, all of a sudden it's like, well, you know what? This offense is pretty damn good now. I mean, it's real good. And look, it ain't my fault if people don't want to believe it because I'm not speaking off the top of my head. I waste a lot of time sitting here doing research, and they were from July 1st to the end of the season. The Cardinals last year were really good. Once they got their planned lineup on the field, a lot changed. From July 1st through the end of the season, this is where they ranked in baseball. 5th in batting average, 7th in on-base percentage, the entire team. 6th in slugging, 6th in OPS. They were 7th in adjusted runs created, which included 2nd in the National League. They were the best team in baseball at hitting with runners in scoring position. They were among the leaders in stolen bases. They were basically top 10 and top 7 or 8 in all the major categories. And then if you go to the National League, even better, of course. So this isn't me talking, just being a blowhard. I'm giving you facts. They were outstanding once they got the team on the field that they intended and they desired to have on the field. And everything took off after that. And it also took off before the 17-game winning streak. It led into that. They were hitting better. So that's a good offense. If these guys can replicate, I think some of these guys will be better. I think O'Neill can only get better. I think Carlson definitely is going to continue to get better. I not 100% confident in Bader, but pretty confident that he's going to the areas where he improved last year, he's going to sustain this season. We all know they have a better fourth outfielder than they did going into last season. I got to think Arenado's going to do better hitting at Busch Stadium in his second season there. I don't know whether Goldie can be what he was last season, where he was 43% above the league average. But if he's 25 to 30% above the league average, that's good. I'm fine with that. So the premise about, you got to do a desperation thing and go get Schwarber, to me, that premise is based on memories of what the offense looked like early last season. I prefer to look at the team they had the second 3 months of the season, because that was the team that was on the paper, was in the computer, was on the laptop, on the big board. That was the lineup that they had planned on all off season and into the season, but couldn't put it together in the first 3 months because O'Neill was hurt. Minor stuff, but hurt several times, and Bader missed a bunch of times. Those three outfielders had 644 plate appearances in the first 3 months. if you add Nootbaar to the mix in the final 3 months, those three starting outfielders plus Nootbaar had 1,009 plate appearances. So you wonder why the offense got better? Well, that's a lot more at bats for those guys. And they other than Goldie, and Arenado, they were carrying your team. And so that's how I'm looking at this offense. The state of this offense. I'm looking at what their actual lineup did when they finally could get it together and the guys stayed healthy.
Yeah, for me, I think I might have said this to you. The O'Neill, I know you said O'Neill can get better. I just want him to maintain. If O'Neill maintains what he did last year, I'm happy as all get up. Do I see possibility of uptick? Yeah, I do. But based on my expectations a year ago of O'Neill, if I get the same production, that's a super win, and that's among the best left fielders in the game right there already. Same with Bader, Bernie. Just maintain what you did. Could there be an improvement? Yeah, but if he just does what he did, because what he did last year was an improvement. So I'd be happy with those two. I said Carlson will have improvement, but if O'Neill, Bader maintain, I'm there with you on the offense. There's not a lot where you go, they're going to struggle. Look, you always want more from the shortstop position, but I'll take whatever is there. I would rather see Sosa than DeYoung, but I know the Cardinals, like you said, DeYoung is going to get every opportunity to fail before he's written off anymore. I mean, he's just going to get more and more opportunity. The contract is there. That's why. I'm not even 100% sold Sosa can be an everyday guy, but I'd rather see him than Sosa. But than DeYoung. But that's me, and we'll see how that plays itself out.
That's you and like every man, woman, and child in St. Louis.
Yes, I will agree. I'm on that wagon. That I'm there with everyone else. And then I want to see what Gorman can do. If he goes to spring training, Bernie, and he just flat out hits, he's got to make the roster for me. Because if he hits, you find a place for him to play, whether it's the DH or whether he's at second. And Tommy Edman will find a place. He can play at enough positions. He can play in various roles to get enough at bats to be sharp.
They got a lot of flexibility,
Yeah,
they really do.
And if that's the case, you don't need to go spend on Schwarber. But I would say this, Bernie, and we haven't talked about this. If you don't need to go spend the money on Schwarber because you got opportunity for Gorman, you got an opportunity maybe for Yepez, you better go get more pitching.
Exactly.
Right?
And I'm glad you said that because that's kind of the part too. Hey, I want them to spend money and be aggressive. I just don't want. I'm just saying I don't really need to see a DH like a full-time DH when they have this rising talent that's really by all indications pretty special and potentially could have a huge impact on the franchise. The only way you're going to know about that is you got to play him. And some people say, well, Bernie, the idea is you got to try to win the World Series. Well, yeah, I get it. I also would like to see them try to win subsequent World Series, and I'm thinking that their chances are enhanced, and they will have chances to win, better chances to win the World Series every year. To be a more serious contender, if they get a Nolan Gorman installed and he is there year after year after year after year doing damage. The sooner that process starts, the better. Delaying it is you're kind of, especially if you bring him up, delaying it is only hurting your team because you're gonna lose a year of him being kind of a part-timer. And as we've all learned, that those 6 years before you get to free agency, they go by faster than you think. You look up, all of a sudden it's like, wow, where did that time go? It's just like the Cubs and Bryant. It's like, wow, what happened there?
Yeah.
It's like I thought he came up like 4 years ago. So, it's just sort of, you got to straddle a little bit the immediate with the future. You got to straddle that line a little bit because let's face it, when you bring a Gorman up and you think he's going to be, a foundational lineup piece, you also have to assume that early on it might be a little rough. He's not going to, come up and hit 380 and, hit a bunch of home runs without showing any, growing pains or anything like that. But that's part of the process. You got to get that part out of the way in order to get him established. I'm strongly in favor of doing that. And then if you don't want to put pressure on him defensively, and you don't want to kind of lose sight of the fact that the way your pitching staff is, you got to have a great defense behind him. Well, you play Tommy Edman. He's the Gold Glove second baseman. Using Gorman as a DH against right-handed pitching, and I remind everyone, it's between 70 and 75% of the at-bats the Cardinals will take next season will be against right-handed pitching. But using Gorman as a DH against right-handed pitching, he's going to pile up a lot of at-bats. You're going to put him in a position of success because he just crushes in the minors, just crushed right-handed pitching, even at AAA. You protect the sanctity of your infield defense, and I don't think really, you're harming Gorman's long-term development as a fielder by his first time through in the major leagues. You primarily use him as a DH, and every now and then you start him at second, and you're going to be working with him on the field before games anyway. But the sooner you get this thing started, the sooner the payoff will come. And I don't want to see anybody blocking the path of a Gorman or blocking the path even of the opportunity that I think Yepez has deserved. And I was looking at his numbers, Jim, and, because I knew the guy was tearing it up, but I just wanted to see, just kind of recap all these guys. And he was pretty special last year. I can see why the Cardinals fell in love with him when we're ready to use him if they advanced past the wild card game. He would have gotten some swings in the postseason. 23 years old, and last year, 2 levels. He had 29 doubles, 27 homers, 77 RBIs. He slugged .586. His on-base percentage was near 400. And he's a right-handed batter, so you figure, okay, he kills left-handed pitching, but what's he like against right-handers? Granted, minor league pitching, but last year against right-handed pitching, he had a .614 slugging percentage, and he had a .990 OPS. That's the kind of guy I want to give at bats to.
Yes,
because he can be a lineup fixture, or he can be, even if it's Gorman and Yepez as the DH platoon with Nootbaar in there too, based on matchups. I want those 2 rookies to get at bats because you can see the capability that they could turn out to be something really special. That's preferable to me rather than overpaying or getting into something where, you're going to have to outbid Boston or whomever to get Kyle Schwarber. I mean, I just feel really strongly about that. I know I'm in the minority because Schwarber's the toy, that everybody wants. I get it. I'm looking at a way to kind of straddle that line between the present and the future. And the sooner these guys get in there and get established as major leaguers, the better the Cardinals will be offensively. Or if one of them is not as good as we think, well, you need to find that out too. You can't have them in the minors forever, and you also can't keep them on the bench once you bring them up here. And you can't trade them away because that'll solve a problem for the short term. I don't want any more Randy Arozarinas, okay?
Yeah.
But that's what's funny because all the fans, so many fans just like squawk and squawk and squawk about, them trading Arozarena. I don't blame anybody for being upset about it. I certainly raised hell about it. But as you know, I raised hell for a different reason. It isn't what he did in Tampa. It's the fact he never got a damn opportunity as a Cardinal. That's what bothered me the most. You can trade anybody you want, but don't trade someone that did everything you asked in the minors, and even when he came up in the short time he had the chance to play, he hit very, very well. It was very impressive. You don't trade a guy without giving him a chance to play, and that's what they did. So I don't want to go down that road. I just don't, because the upside and the payoff is much greater if you Just bite the bullet, maybe expect some growing pains, but you get these guys situated in the major leagues ASAP and give them the at-bats they need.
They got to be given the opportunity. There's no doubt. I think sometimes, unfortunately, it's misguided by some fans that the perception, Bernie, is if you don't go and spend on Schwarber, then you're cheap. And that's not the argument we're making here.
Nope.
It's, hey, when you develop and spend money on developing guys, you've got to give them that opportunity. Otherwise, as you pointed out, you end up with Randy Arozarena just, lighting it up for somebody else because you didn't give them that opportunity. And you're at a point with the development of Gorman, Yepez, and these other guys that are coming up here within a year or so. They got to be given that opportunity. And if they fail, then they fail, and that's where the organization has to go back and reevaluate how they're developing or how they look at their talent.
Yeah.
But you got to give those guys a chance. Otherwise, you're doing a heck of a job supplying other teams with talent. That's for sure.
And even, hey, O'Neill's a lesson there, too. Even if they get off to a bad start, you don't give up on them prematurely. If you believe that the talent's there and it's just a matter of growth. And there's no more growing to do at AAA, You got to just bite the bullet. I firmly believe that. I think O'Neill's a great example of that. And he just didn't have enough plate appearances. They were spread over 3 seasons. He just didn't have enough to convince me he was not going to make it. I needed to see more. And when we all got a chance to see more, we saw exactly who he became. It was always there. It was just a matter of getting experience. But the more experience you get, the sooner it's going to happen. That's my takeaway. And I think their evaluations on some of these outfielders, are really good. I think Newt Barr's a lot better than I would have anticipated. I really mean that. So it's really interesting. But to your point, so I'm going to say your point again, like I'm not. When I say don't spend money on a DH when you have guys you need to give at bats to, guys who could be very special for you. I'm not saying we'll keep, and by the way, that's great. Then you can keep the payroll where it is. I ain't saying that at all. It's quite the opposite. I want to put the money into something else.
Yeah.
I want to build that bullpen up, or I want to get a 5th starter or a swing man or 2 that can do a great job for you as a spot starter and as a reliever. I want to see that. I want to see that part reinforced, because if you look at this as the abstract, in the final 3 months of the season, it's like, here I go again. But the Cardinals had the Cardinals had 8 guys that were above average offensively, and their other 2 guys who were just a smidge below average offensively. For all intents and purposes, they were average. So for the final 3 months, and I'll take Rondon off that list because he did a good job, but he won't be back. So let's make it 9. 9 guys, 7 of whom were above average, and most of them well above average. And then 2 slightly, just a smidge below average. Those 9 guys are all coming back. And those 9 guys are all coming back, plus you've got one of the top prospects in baseball ready to roll, and you've got another guy you felt so strongly about, Yepez. You put him on your postseason roster, and there's even other people on the way. I mean, there's the Burleson kid. He's pretty close. There's that utility infielder, Brendan Donovan.
Yeah, they talk about him a lot.
Yeah, so if you're bringing back, a collection of hitters, 7 of whom were above average and 2 were just about average the final 3 months of the season, they're all coming back, and you're adding 2 legitimate prospects, 2 exciting prospects to the lineup mix. I don't want to put money in the lineup. They got a lot to work with there. And we saw the results in the second half of the season. Or, after the All-Star break, they were fantastic, especially offensively. I want to see them avoid the thing that cost them first place a shot at it last season. They didn't have enough pitching depth. Got a couple guys hurt and everything, and the roof caved in, So that's where I want the money to go. They're going to have enough DH-type guys. They don't need to spend money on that.
Kind of there with you on this one.
But like I said, different circumstances, I'd have a different opinion. But like last year, but this isn't last year. We know what some of these guys can do now because they did it.
Go get pitching. Right? Just go get some pitching, like you said. It was interesting what Keith just kind of hinted at with Liberatore, though. Says he doesn't think he'll be ready right away.
Not right away.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to, I can't tell you when, and by the way, it wasn't recently because I honor the, the MLB policy. No one is to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
There's no, you media people under no circumstances. I could probably get Putin on the phone easier than Gersh.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway,
I was thinking the other day. I go, we should have, and I go, they won't talk about anything. So why could we get so and so on? It was like,
I know.
It's unfortunate because we would love to talk some baseball.
But a while back, whenever it was, Mo exchanging emails with him. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, he. It had something. No, it had something to do with what we were talking about. Getting at bats for guys and him being really gung ho on that, and just getting the feeling. Look, they're going to do this anyway. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense.
Was it Liberatore?
Oh yeah, that's it, man. I'm sorry, dude.
That's all right.
Thank you.
No,
thank
we
you,
were
thank you.
A lot of things there.
See, I got so many words coming out. It kind of trips my tongue there and does something to my brain. Anyway, Mo has said all along. Like when I say all along, I'm talking about towards the end of last season and early off season. Mm-hmm. That, loosely, they were looking at Liberatore as a guy, right before the All-Star break or right after the All-Star break. That's kind of a loose time frame. Right. So you're right, And look, if he's going to face right-handed hitters, to Keith Law's point, I mean, the one thing he's got to do, the one pitch he's definitely got to refine and establish as a legitimate weapon against right-handed bats, that's absolutely the changeup. So you just go down there and polish up that changeup. You start to do better against right-handed bats, and then he's ready to go. That's really the only thing missing.
I am anxious to see what he does because there's a lot of noise, a lot of talk about him. And we know who he was traded for. He's always going to be linked to that. I just want to see a left-handed pitcher be successful in this organization that they have, not two left-handers you go that are at the end of the rope and come in here and go, we'll see what we can get out of them. It's been a while since I've had a lot of confidence in a lefty the Cardinals have developed. So that's another reason why I want to see what he can do, and I'm hopeful that he can be a guy you can count on and be a starter, by the way.
Yeah. There's a lot there to work with, and I'm really hoping that Liberatore does well because I think the card. Look again, my beef about the Rosarina trade was just they never gave him an opportunity, and that's kind of unacceptable. That is unacceptable. But Liberatore is a guy that a lot of teams thought very highly of, and one of the coveted pitching prospects in baseball. So if he turns out to be what not only the Cardinals think he would be, but a lot of teams and a lot of teams who looking for young pitching who know that Tampa Bay is always willing to make trades. If he becomes that guy, then it's fine because as we've just spent a long time talking about, the Cardinals have plenty of people to put in the outfield. I'm not saying a Rosarina wouldn't do a good job there. Of course he would. But it's not like, because he's not there that you don't have anybody else who can hit who's an outfielder. That's kind of changed. That's my point. So that'll make that trade a lot easier to look back on and not be so ticked off about. If Liberatore is as good as we hope he is. Shall we take a break?
We can do that.
And then we got Bob Nightingale coming up at 5 o'clock.
That is correct.
And we'll get a couple things in before we get Bob on the phone. But you're listening to the Bernie Show on a snow day for everybody except for Hewer and me. We're not bitter.
No, we're not.
I'm home anyway. He's the one that's got to drive home. What did you drive in today? Old Grandpa?
No, I don't drive that. Believe it or not, the truck doesn't do well in the snow unless you put a bunch of sandbags in it, and I don't have that. So it's the front-wheel drive Malibu, and it did really well this morning. So it's got some new tires on it about 2 months ago. That helps.
It doesn't look too bad out there. Now, I know it's where the badness is with all these half loco drivers.